Welcome to Middle Fingers Up, the show where we hold our heads high and our middle fingers higher. I'm your host, Kieran McKay. Today, I am looking forward to sitting down with Neha. She is the visionary founder of Ninja Nari, a platform dedicated to celebrating South Asian roots and empowering women. As someone who shares a similar cultural background and is exploring my own journey of unlearning, relearning, and then learning about these roots, I'm so excited to sit down and pick Neha's brain, have a conversation about the challenges and joys of navigating multiple identities and how we can truly honor our roots while we're forging these paths of our identity. So Neha, welcome. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. How are you?
Thank you so much, Kiran, for having me. I'm doing great, and it's such a pleasure to be here. And thank you for giving me the opportunity for recording my very first podcast. I'm truly honored, and I'm so excited to be here.
I'm glad you shared the excitement with me. I've been excited to sit down with you since I discovered your platform on social media. We have similar followers, and you were even talking about the joys of social media when you use it properly, you network. And so your platform, Ninja Nari, your social media page popped up, very curious about it, very inspiring. You were featuring another South Asian woman and her story. She's a single mom doing a lot on her own. And I thought, oh my gosh, why don't I know about this? And so I was so grateful when I reached out to you and said, can we collaborate? And when we had our phone prep, we had such a good conversation. But I also want to say, you kind of almost didn't make it here today, right? This was likely not going to happen when I called you for the I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Yeah, no. And there is one thing probably I did not mention to you during that phone call, which changed the course of Ninja Nari, which I'm going to talk about it in a bit, is that if you recall, you had called me and I did not pick your initial call.
It was a video call.
Yes. Yeah. And if I was seeing the phone ringing, and as it was ringing, I was thinking of an excuse in my head for not making it to this, because I was like, what am I going to talk about? Like, what does she even see in me? Like, I'm just starting out this little page, an Instagram page. But then I was like, no, I think this because I had made a commitment to you and I am a woman of my word. So I was like, no, I'm going to honor this. I'm going to call her back and then let's see how it goes. And I called you back. And honestly, Kiran, like, prior to that phone call, I think Ninja Nari was going in a bit of a lull, and I had started to be like demotivated and stuff, because, I had shared earlier that Komal was very responsive, and she shared her story so enthusiastically and so positively that she really gave me a huge boost as to which direction the page was going to go to. But then it fell in a lull, right? Like, there were people who were not getting back to me. So I was like, I think it's just, I don't know how much attention I'm going to give to this page. But after our conversation, you motivated me. Those 15 minutes, it completely changed the course. Like, you made me see my worth. And you hadn't even met me. So it's amazing, the power of words, the power of boosting, giving up somebody a little bit of push. It goes a long, long way. So thank you for that.
I really appreciate hearing you talk like this, Neha, because you're right. Like, we didn't know each other. Today was the first time we saw each other, even, right? We've never seen each other. And only recently you started sharing pictures and videos with your face, because up until then, I didn't really even know, because with Ninja Nari, you don't ever share who you are. It's more about empowering, the women around you and talking about where we come from. Lots of talk about Eastern, Western gaps. It's very interesting because you are a first generation immigrant, but you are raising kids that are born here. And you and I talked a little bit about my story of growing up and, some work as a parent you're doing with your own kids about balancing Eastern and Western. And so I just thought from your whole page and that short little advertisement of, Ninja Nari that like we need more of that out here. And part of why I put you on the spot right now was you almost didn't make it was because I think a lot of women listening can benefit from hearing what made you show up today. Because I think you're not the only one who will often think, what do I have to offer? What am I going to say? People don't need to hear from me. Sometimes we think heroes have to be the ones we interview. And then we don't realize like there's a hero within all of us. And you stopping a platform like that, I think would be so sad because I know like for myself, and there's got to be so many of us out there, we pay attention, we watch that. And you and I talked about how do we build a village? Like this is the uplifting work that we need as women and especially as women of color. So I'm glad that 15 minutes did something for you because it would be sad to see the lull turn into Ninja Nari never coming back again.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think I'm again going to bring up that 15-minute conversation. Since then, for some strange reason, I have been telling myself I am special. I am meant for more. I am meant to empower, share stories of other women around because it's not just me. I moved to Canada about 12 years back and I never felt homesick, but at the same time, I never felt at home.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of women who feel like that. So it's so important to share their stories. And I would, if you're listening to this, I would encourage you to, just reach out to me because Ninja Naris, we are all Ninja Naris and, you deserve your stories to be told. You don't, as Kiran, you mentioned to me, I don't need to be doing anything super big to have my story told.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, and I'm going to just reiterate that to all the Ninja Naris out there. You are special in your own way. I think I said it in one of my reels. If you're making round rotis, let me know. That's
totally,
a superpower.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because we did talk about that. A lot of times we put, and I've said this before, but we do put a lot of effort and time, money, comparison, goals, everything to celebrities. When we see people in social media, influencers, when we see singers, actors, doesn't matter, Hollywood, Bollywood, whoever is more famous than us, or maybe we have friends that are really rich. Whoever is in a status above us, we first of all put them in that status and we think that's someone who we should be watching and listening to. And maybe, but honestly, there are way more cooler people. There are way more important people. There are people with such amazing stories that go far beyond someone like Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You know, and so those round rotis, Komo's story, even you coming on today, because we're going to learn a little bit about why Ninja Nari, where did that come from? I already know whatever you're going to share is going to hit so many more people and relate to so many more people than watching, again, a celebrity on TV. We just have to start to realize our neighbors, people around us, humans that we talk to have so much more to give to us, to learn on our journey.
Yeah. I really hope, if our conversation can help inspire or let someone know that they're not alone, we do have a community around, then it will be... That's the whole purpose of Ninja Nari.
I love it. So I'm going to ask you more about Ninja Nari in a second. I'm going to pause. Can I just break down for you? Because again, I think a lot of women would relate to this. Like when we had that phone call, can you tell me how you decided to turn your doubts, worries, whatever the reasons were that you didn't, you talked about like, do I even have anything to talk about? What, who am I? That kind of stuff. To, okay, I'm going to come. Like, what switched for you?
I think that little voice, I think, yes. Okay, now I can piece it together. So, it was a lot of it had to do with you. I'm again going to be candid. Okay. Yes, how you used words, to your tone, how you empowered me, Kiran. Totally. Mm-hmm. That in that phone call, you told me that, what I'm doing, you validated my work, so that empowered me hugely. And then it was a two-way conversation, right? You were listening to what I had to say, and me voicing what I was doing with Ninja Nari, it gave me that confidence, which because I was saying it out loud,
Yeah.
right? Like what this is for, what am I doing? So that helped me hugely in recognizing this is real. This is not just another page that I had set out to, start. And
Mhm.
there is this whole cycle, where you start an Instagram page, you post some pictures, it doesn't get the validation, and then you leave it.
Yes.
Right? So I was going in that same cycle. But with Ninja Nari, something strange has been happening, right? Things have been effortless in some way or the other. So I think this is meant to be. This
Mhm.
is so I feel like even coming, I have never gotten this opportunity for coming on a podcast and talking, but this you made it happen for me. I'm hosting Mandala and Mocktails event soon, which is, with in collaboration with another South Asian artist. Her name is Palak, so it's all coming together really beautifully, like a puzzle fitting, all the pieces are just coming together really nicely. So yeah, I mean this feel I feel it's
Aw.
just meant to be.
It's like this, just the magic and the power when we uplift each other. There's
Totally.
a lot of bad that can come out of when we don't do that, but I think there's way more good than when we do it. Just to be able to talk to another woman and have the kind of conversation that also inspires you to want to go and do something. But also sometimes we compare, you and I talked about this, and we think, well, maybe I don't want to like what Neha's doing because maybe she'll blow up and she'll do better work. And then what about me? And so our own insecurities make us, I don't know, trick our brain to think you're doing something wrong versus dealing with our own securities. And I think this is a great way to flip the switch. And I really like how you're sending the message to a lot of women in our community about we can all be successful and still support each other. My success doesn't make you a bad person or any less. Your success doesn't make me a bad person or any less. But if we're helping each other both succeed, can you imagine how much more we can do together?
Totally. Like it has to be competition over collaboration, because as
Mm.
is, we have to recognize that we are brown women in a white world, right? So if we even induce competition into it, then there is nothing left for us. So we have to realize that to grow, we have to uplift each other.
Yeah.
If the recipe does not include competition at all.
Yeah.
We have to replace it with uplifting each other, with the thinking that, if she grows, then I grow.
Yes.
It's we are doing this whenever I'm like this, that I'm recording right now. It's like I'm leaving a legacy for my kids. Everything that we are doing now is a legacy for our kids. It's for the next generation. So, we cannot have them thinking that a fellow South Asian is a competition.
Yes.
We have to identify each other as our community, because you are a part of my identity. You are a part of where, you are my sense of belonging. You're my village.
Mhm.
So we have to recognize that.
That's so well said. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you decided to come, and I appreciate you giving me a lot of credit, but in the end, your decision. I could not physically make you come, and you came to a place by the end of that conversation. You put that effort in. You did the work in your head, and by the end of those 15 minutes to decide, actually, wait a minute, I do have something to offer. And if I don't have something to offer, maybe I have something to learn. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's not just I have to give. It's like I can also sit here and learn something too. So I think today you and I are going to be doing a lot of both, because my favorite part of recording is like the few minutes I have with my guests before we record.
But yeah.
Especially when we've never met. The best conversations that happen in this room about who are you, who am I, what are we doing, what's going on. And we'll just have a bunch of conversations. They don't all connect, but we're just trying to tell each other so much and learn so much. And I find that really helpful before we start the recording, because I learned so much about you, your strength, and the direction and the focus you have about what you want to bring to our community and how you want to help our community heal and grow and learn. And like you said, whether we have kids or not, kids are always the next generation that we have to think about, the future of how do we want to leave. And I like how you say it, like, with a legacy. So should we learn a little bit about you?
Yes.
tell us, sometimes when you go to these trainings or if you work, they always want to know what's a fun fact about you. So I was like, okay, why don't we do that with you? Like, what is something about you that not many people would know?
I love momos as much as I love Maggie. And another fun fact is you might want to edit it because this was going to be my middle finger thing. But I can quote Friends as much as I can quote Coffee with Karan.
Oh, I really like that you said that. See, there you go again. It's like if people are listening, maybe you have a treat or you make a fun sound or write down a point, but you're going to see a lot about Eastern and Western meshing together.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great example of why can't we have both pop culture?
Yeah, no, don't stereotype me. You know, I'm not just a Bollywood girl. Like, I like my Tarantinos.
Yes.
I do Kill Bills. Or, recently I've again, I don't know, for the 5th time, I think I'm binge watching Gilmore Girls.
Oh.
So, yeah.
My sister-in-law loves that show so much. I always bug her about that. So I love that. Like, don't assume that you know who I am before we've even had a conversation. And don't assume after the conversation you know who I am too, because we all decide to share just little bits with each other. And somehow walk away thinking we know everything about someone or we assume, because sometimes I find, first of all, I think it's really cool that you said we're all living in a white world. And I'm going to tell you a funny story. When I was in grade 5, you know how we have these interesting core memories that pop up? One of my most core memory is in grade 5, I am doing schoolwork and I write a story. And in my story, my teacher's correcting me and she's correcting because I write the whole white world. And in the English grammar, how you write, it's supposed to be the whole wide world.
Mm-hmm.
But I wrote the whole white world. And so my teacher is like, oh, Kieran, you're so silly. It's not the whole white world. It's the whole wide world. And I didn't think anything of it, and then years later, that memory popped in my brain and I started laughing so hard. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's so funny that I wrote whole white world, like the one brown kid in class, right? And then my teacher's white. And then years later, the memory popped back in my head and I thought, oh man, I was so smart as a kid in grade 5. I was right all along. Yeah, my teacher told me it's whole wide world, but it actually is whole white world.
Whole white world.
So anyways, when you said that we're living in the white world, I thought, oh my God, that's so funny. It brings back that story of as a kid where sometimes you're trying to make sense of these microaggressions or these Eastern Western weird things. And you walk away with very different understanding. And it's interesting when you come back to it later, you're like, this is really what's going on. So I just thought that was a funny story. But okay, let's do our MFU, because today I want to be on track with you. I'm borrowing your time and I want to make sure I bring you back on time too. So let's go right into our middle fingers. What did you bring? What do you want to put your middle fingers up to?
Like I said, earlier, I want to give my middle fingers to those who stereotype me based on, on how I look. I'm not just all Bollywood. I can quote Friends as much as I can quote Coffee with Karan. So don't do Bollywood cliches for me. And I can love a cappuccino as much as I love my masala chai, So here is to breaking stereotypes, one TV show at a time.
I love it. Okay, you know what? I love this because we're going to have such a good talk. We already are. I'm going to share a middle fingers up with you, something fresh that actually just happened to me recently. And I wondered if I should talk about it or not. And then I woke up this morning and said, no, I need to talk about this. Sometimes we worry about protecting people in a story where we, I don't want to make the people in the story a villain. Mm-hmm. But I think sharing this story is good for our people to feel validated, hopefully, that they're not the only ones that experience these conversations, but also as people of color, we also have a lot of work to do on our own end in terms of our own barriers with racism. And so this is sort of how this story goes. So first of all, I've been, just like you with Ninja Nari, you've been kind of putting off a little bit of, should I be doing this? I had a segment I've been wanting to start, and it's called My White Girl Complex Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. And every Wednesday I talk about another stereotype or share a story about how we are more than just what, like you said, what people think, they look at you and they think, oh, this Bollywood woman, there's more to you. But I've been putting it off because I'm like, oh, I'm going to offend white people if I do this.
Yeah.
even though I've had these experiences. And so I woke up today and I was like, no, I think I'm going to start doing this, because if we were to break down what happened to me this past week, I went to dinner with my husband and two white friends that I'm very close with. I was very close with.
Mm-hmm.
And in the conversation, somehow one of them brought up about what is racism. They said, I don't really believe in racism.
Mm-hmm.
And who even started racism? And so if I was going to write like a guidebook about how to survive white people, I would put this story in there, because I've been thinking about this for 2 days. And I think, okay, when a white person wants to bring up a topic like this to us, it's a trap. And I would say, learning from this, don't fall for it. Stay quiet. Don't say anything, because that's not the kind of person that wants to learn and grow and understand about their own, biases that they have as white people. It's like a hard journey some of them have to go on and figure out. So I didn't do that. I challenged it and said, don't sit here being my friend and like talk to me like that. That's not helpful for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been learning how to use my voice. And today I'm not going to stay quiet. I'm going to say something to you. And so then they disagreed with what I was saying. And this is the other thing. This is the other thing I would put in my survival guide is, how come when I share my racial experiences with white people, it's only one story. And the story to them is, no, that's not how that happened. Even though they weren't there,
Mm-hmm.
how come they can discredit a lot of times experiences as people of color I'm having? But when they want to share their story, it's the right story.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to say to me, that didn't happen to you, but this is the right way. So in this conversation, they're disagreeing with where colonization came from. They're disagreeing with a lot. And so before I could say anything more, this is a couple, the wife, my other friend, started to, if anyone's read a book about dismantling racism, like, I'm not lying, this actually happened. And this is textbook every chapter in the book. Now, because I'm speaking up, I'm being told I'm attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word they used. And they said they have to leave. So she went to the bathroom and she came back, and I said to her, how come you said to me, I'm attacking you? Like, to me, when I hear of attacking, I think of the rapist behind the tree who's standing there waiting for a woman and takes her. Like, that's an attacker.
Yeah, that's a strong word.
It's a strong word. So I was like, how come you think I'm attacking you? Because again, they brought this topic up.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't like how it was going. I don't know if they knew why they wanted to talk about this. They're trying to send a point to me. Then in that moment, they started to use my friend, that this is a couple, his race. Well, he's part, Indigenous. And I just want to say to those of us of color, this is the other thing, surviving the white people guide. Like, we can't use our color to support us in moments of gaining power. It is one or the other. You're either being an anti-racist or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not sometimes I am and sometimes I'm not. So how can you bring up in this conversation, you don't believe in racism, but then now you're saying, well, I'm part Indigenous.
Yeah.
And so my response was, it's too bad that you're not showing up for your own community today in this conversation with me, because this is not you supporting that. Then the other part of Surviving White People Guide, and is in every chapter book that you read about racism, is when sometimes it feels like, with a lot of the white women that I have been friends with, I am like Pokemon cards. They collect me. I'm shiny. They put me in their little case and keep me in there and take me out to show me when their other friends and family come over. Like, look at this cool Pokemon card Kira and I have. And then when they're done with me, they trade me for a new shiny card.
Oh, that's harsh.
It is harsh. And I agree. And that's how it feels, because in that moment, my friends couldn't show up for me. They forgot who I was. And I hear from her, well, my best friend is of color. People of color don't like to be thrown into conversations like that. If I'm your friend, please don't ever say, well, I have a friend that's brown. Like, we don't like hearing that.
We're just humans.
We're
That's
just
how
humans.
We're supposed to see each other.
Totally. And don't use a fact. Don't say, I have a friend of color, when you're not showing up for them at all in this conversation. By yelling at me, telling me I'm attacking you, they were like, you're laughing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm laughing because this fucking conversation is out of this world. Like you want to talk to me about this, but you don't want to talk to me about this. But now you're telling me I'm saying these things and I don't understand you because what? Unfortunately, the conversation ended not well. And me saying, I have to go now.
I'm very sorry you went through that. Like it doesn't sound like a pleasant experience at all.
No,
right?
it's not. And it's grieving. Like now
I
it's
was gonna say that.
Yeah.
Because then you start grieving. If you're saying they were your good friends, you have to go through that process of not just reliving that conversation a few times in your head.
Yes.
But you're also grieving that, you possibly not be talking to this person for a while.
Totally.
So you're going to be grieving that. But what I'm going to say is I'm glad you spoke up, because you said initially that you should have rather kept quiet, but that would have not gone well. Eventually in the future, you would have been like, I should have spoken my piece. Maybe not as much, but you need to, it's part of your identity. You have to say your piece. You have to use your voice. It's been given to us for a reason. If you don't stand up for yourself, that's going to haunt you later, in many years to come later. So I'm glad you spoke your piece.
Thank you for saying that. I am also glad I said something. I just wish, though, like when I thought about it after, and I think that now I know, after all these years of like, how many experiences like this do we have? But now I know when someone brings up, sometimes people can be endearing and seem like they really want to learn. But I think we have to pay attention to the kind of question they're asking. And when someone starts with, what is racism? That's not going to be an intellectual learning conversation.
Yeah.
That's one-sided. Versus I have had a few white people that are friends that are learning in their own journey, and I'm learning in mine. And together we are vulnerable, and we say, okay, how can we figure this out together? Like, this was said, and then what can I do? And, I have a really good friend that I will go for walks, and I will pick her white brain and she will pick my brown brain. And together we'll figure out, okay, like, well, how do we handle this? I think for our people of color, like, I think we just have to maybe tune in and really help each other where we can, creating space so we can share these stories with each other, but also encouraging each other to, like you're saying, speak up, learning how to speak up, maybe fighting the fight together. Because in the moment, it felt very lonely, like I'm one person.
Yeah.
I was telling you on the car ride home, like I had to write this down because I was trying to be in tune with my five senses and my feeling. And my heart was beating so hard and heavy, like up and almost felt like out of my chest. Obviously, it wasn't going out, but it felt so heavy. And I was sitting there feeling very alone after that conversation, but also feeling not isolated or alone, because the heart beating felt like the cries and the encouragement of our ancestors. Like it just felt like a lot of heaviness that was really them, banging a drum and saying, yes, let's keep doing this. Let's keep speaking up. Let's not break down. And even if we don't speak up, let's get up and try to show up tomorrow in some way. Let's connect who is in our village, all these kinds of things that you and I are here to talk about too today. So thank you. I know I said a lot, but also, I'm selfish. It's my platform. So I thought I'd use it.
No, you should. And that's actually very powerful, that about your ancestors, bringing up your ancestors, because everything that we're doing is deeply ingrained. It goes way back. So, recognizing them, and in some way or the other, you're sort of paying your respects to them. So they're going to guide you through this that you're going through right now. And it's definitely not easy. What you're going through right now, going through these harsh experiences is difficult. But from what I have read I think I read someplace, I don't know exactly, but it said that when you are growing, then these little hurdles, they will come in front of you as as trying to test you. So take it as a test. I would say, this is my little piece of advice. That, take it as a test, take strength from your ancestors. You're aware about them, so, and then keep going. This is so this Middle Fingers podcast is so beautiful. You're,
Oh,
recognizing people like me and other. I'm seeing this beautiful art of Suchi art right
uh-huh.
behind Kiran.
Shout out
So
to Bhavin. Yes.
yeah, so she's doing this great work. So, more power to you, Kiran. Don't let these little tasks bog you down at all.
I feel like it was meant to be that this just happened and not even 2 days later you and I are recording,
Yeah.
because I know you had said, oh, like, we could have rescheduled, and honestly last night I was like, thank God I'm going to be having a recording like this today, because sometimes we have to spend time with our own.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to be around our own familiarity, and that's not bad. It's not putting down the Western culture.
Not at all.
It's just we need to refuel, recharge. And, you and I talked about in the beginning too, like, you're learning your identity coming from the motherland to a new land and figuring out how you fit in this. And the mother of kids that aren't born, they're born here. Their motherland is here, even though it's not, but it is, And I think there's all these sorts of things that we navigate. And sometimes we think we just have to do them without talking about them or alone. And, even you said when you and I had that 15-minute prep call, once you got it out, once those words came out, you started to work backwards from that, like think about that different. And when the thoughts are in our head, it's so different than when we get to speak them out, write them out.
100%. And even like I take the train back from my work, right? So I'll share a quick little small story. Back home when I was in India, I hadn't really moved to Canada. I wasn't a very ambitious person. And I had one of my uncles tell me, Neha, you're a girl with no direction, and it has stayed with me all this while. And and I've been trying to look for my purpose all these years. Like, I have had very supportive parents, and I'm so grateful to God, for having them in my life. I have a very supportive husband, but at the same time, I've been looking for my purpose in all these years. I'll be 40 next year. And just now, like since I've started Ninja Nari, this train ride on my way back, I felt a sense of fulfillment. Just recently, like this last week, I was getting out of the train and I felt this sort of that I'm not running anymore. It gave me a sense of fulfillment.
That's amazing. Can we talk a little bit about Ninja Nari? So you mentioned Ninja Nari earlier. This is sort of how you and I connected. So there must be a gap. There must be a story. There is a reason. I want to know, what was exact moment or story that led you to think we need Ninja Nari?
Yeah, so I mean, I can go a little way back. Is that I moved to Canada all by myself. I moved to Windsor. It's a small town in Ontario to study, to do my 1 year diploma. I left my parents, my friends, community. It was a fresh start filled with both excitement, but there was a bit of uncertainty. I had a huge positive mindset, right? I was going to make the best of this new opportunity. I was leaving a lot behind, but this was like, I still remember, I'd moved in January, and I was in my college dorm. They had given a room for 7 days until you find like permanent lodging. So I had opened the window of my college room, and there was snow outside, and I looked at it and I was like, this is the first day of the rest of my life, and I was determined to make the most of it. But like I said, right, I wasn't homesick, but I didn't feel at home. I met the love of my life here. We have a beautiful family. I found a job which I really love, so everything's been going really good. But so I lost my father 2 years back, and something clicked in me that, it felt somebody took a piece of my childhood from me. So after that, I have been looking for a piece of, my identity. I've been searching for it. Who am I? If you take these little pieces out of my life, because that is the way of life, right? Ultimately, there is this saying, you come alone, you go alone. So just as myself, as an individual, what is my being? And so that's when it came, that's how I've been navigating through my roots, and how you also said my ancestors. Because of that, like, I think I decided that, I want to feel empowered, and I feel it's my dad's way of doing somehow. He's guiding me through all this. So it's that's how Ninja Nari was just born. Just one random day, I started this, and it's just seemed to fit. And here I am. I want to tell the stories of South Asian women. If you're an immigrant, if you're a first generation immigrant, or like Kiran, like you are a daughter of, you're a second generation immigrant in Canada. We all deserve to have a platform where we can be vulnerable, where we can share a laugh, even if it's a e-chai date, talk about, have that, or share stories, or just have in-person meetups where we know that, this is the place where we truly feel at home. It's that's how Ninja Nari was born, and it's still very fresh. I hope, it's basically by you for you.
That's just beautiful. Like, I'm so grateful for people like you that I get to meet on this platform that are doing so many important things. And like, I cannot have you leave here today without it stuck in your head, if it already isn't, that this is very important and we need this to continue. And
Thank
everybody
you.
needs to follow. What is the social media account that people can go find and support and start following?
Yeah, it's just Ninja Nari. Just look for Ninja Nari and you will find, we are right there.
So why Ninja Nari?
We are all powerful. Ninja means powerful samurai. And sometimes they can be lone samurais, so that's how it came from. And then we are all Naris. And I had to, mix once again, like my story, I had to mix East and West into this. So,
we all have a Ninja Nari in us.
We all have a Ninja Nari in us, and we are all unique. We are all powerful. We all have a superpower that is just waiting to needs to be lighted. We all are born to shine, so that's how it just came up. We are all superhumans.
I love. What are you learning since you started Ninja Nari? I know you've interviewed one woman. You are looking for more, and I want to repeat this. We are not looking for superheroes. We're not looking for people. I mean, we can have people that have the most successful business and all that, but we were looking for everyday humans. And part of Komal's story is about, like we said, a single mom who's navigating the stigma of divorce in her community, raising kids on her own, working. And there's a lot more of us out there that relate to someone like her. And so you're looking for women to recommend women. You're looking for husbands, brothers, fathers that can also recommend wonderful women that they know. Like, how cool would it be to get a referral from a father with his daughter, or, a brother about his sister, husband, like just the women in your life, they all deserve to, like you said, have that light shine on them, because women are not going to do that on their own.
That's exactly what it is, right? Like, so basically what happened is, and I want to shine a light on Komal once again, is because she was an anomaly, right? Like, Ishita had shared her name. She had recommended her name. I reached out to Komal right away. Komal was super prompt, super responsive, so positive, she willingly shared her story with me right away. And I was able to put it together, and it was out in a week.
Yeah.
Right. And it got such a positive response. Everybody was they wrote such kind words. They were so proud of her. It made my heart full, right? I thought I was on the right path. But then I again did the same thing. I asked people to recommend more people, and it was pin drop silence. Like, there was nobody willing to come out on their own. So I was like, that's okay. Instagram is to, use it productively, not just doom scrolling. So there I went looking for South Asian women in and around Calgary, and there are a lot of us out there, who are doing great work, or who are just, like you said, everyday humans, just navigating through life. So I reached out to all of them, and but I did not get any responses, which was a bit disheartening. Because, like you said, right, like, we are not taught to think that we are special, or we have a story to be told. If, like, if we are just going through a regular life, is there a story to be told behind that? Well, there is. how are you navigating through life? You might be better at doing something that I might not be. Please tell me, like, let's tell others out there, because we are all in this together. So that's basically just going back to that little lull. So then, so people, like, there are women out there who are willing to be like, oh my God, this is beautiful. Yes, I would love to answer these. And then I share them my questions. And then this is again pin drop silence. It is this whole cycle.
Yeah.
So then I don't hear back. So
What do you think the silence means? Because there's a lot of that. What do you think is behind that silence?
See, I think life happens. You know,
Yeah.
we are all busy.
Yep.
So, but then again, this is important. And then second is self-doubt. You know, we are always thinking, why me? Like, you know, even I had those questions, why me?
Mhm.
You know, and it goes back to, you know, even when I got the job of my dreams here in Calgary, I was like, why did they hire me? So this whole self-doubt, it goes back to again our culture, I think. And there was one piece that I wanted to talk about earlier. It was
Mhm.
about professional leadership, right? So basically back home, we are just taught to listen, do. We are raised to be followers. But over here in the Western culture, you're taught to think freely. You're taught to and act accordingly. You know, so back home, we are raised to have a strong work ethic, right? But then when you combine the work principles over here and how people are raised, like, you know, you're allowed to think, you know, you're
Mhm.
allowed to think and act on what you think in reasonable recourse,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
right? So when you combine those two together, you are building like a good leader, a good professional with like strong work ethics who can now also think freely.
Yeah.
You know, so that's magic.
Yeah.
So
I really like what you're saying about what you learned about coming from India to Canada. And you mentioned this to me even before we started recording, which is your appreciation and about adapting to the culture, and also like really being grateful for the fact of how much freedom of thinking is encouraged here. You probably are seeing that through parenting, I would imagine, because your oldest is going in kindergarten, or
yeah, he just graduated from kindergarten.
congratulations.
Thank you. And the sass is, oh my God.
He graduated with some sass.
He graduated with total sass.
But I bet you're learning. Well, what are you seeing between what you've been taught back in India, how you're adapting to this freedom of thinking and doing out here with limitations, obviously, but and then you have your child that's born in a country where it's encouraged to build all this insight and encouraged to work through the self-doubt and confidence and all this stuff. So you're in the middle of that. How are you navigating parenting?
See, so I joke to my mom that when I was a kid, like when my generation, I think you'll recognize it, identify with this, that we used to listen to our parents earlier and now we listen to our kids.
Oh my gosh, yes. I said the same thing. I'm like, I left a house of other people's rules to come to my own house to follow my kids' rules.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what the heck?
Exactly. So our generation, unfortunately, it is what it is. But, you know, just going on a serious note is that, you know, I have realized it was a moment, you know, when what's that spiritual awakening? Like, I think I may have lost temper on my child that previous evening for some reason, and I'm a gentle parent. I don't like to scream, you know. It just my nerve, it affects my nervous system when I scream, you know. So I try to be as gentle as I can, but you know, kids, right? Like they push our buttons. If you're a gentle parent, they will manipulate you further, right? So I, unfortunately, I'm not proud of that. I lost my temper on him, but the next morning I had a bit of a spiritual awakening. Is that he, like, you know how sometimes we start respecting adults? I realized that this person here, he deserves respect, you know. And it doesn't matter if this little person does not have the power which I do. Doesn't matter how much they push your buttons. He's trying to tell a piece in his own way. He's trying to voice his own feelings. He has his own personality, and for some reason it starts early on now, right? I think I'm developing my personality now.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
over here it starts early on, so I have to respect that. And this self-awareness is different from how I grew up, so yeah, I mean, like, I don't think, parents at that time, they were aware, they were navigating through their own challenges. We talked about this earlier. Parenting does not come with a manual. So as much as I identify, recognize that, even my own parents, they were learning and they're still learning, right? I realize that I can bridge the gap in some ways. I'm willing to say, I'm willing to apologize to my child, which is huge, right? Which didn't happen
Yeah.
early on. I'm willing to say sorry when I say something wrong, because I want to make sure that, he is not afraid to own up to he knows accountability.
Yeah.
So there's
Oh,
just
that right there is like, in our own community, it's a great way to say we're trying to break toxic masculinity. So many of our men, our boys, in a lot of parts of India are born to be put on that pedestal you and I've talked about before. They're a different class than us girls. And even here in Canada, whether you're born here or not, it's a man's world. And men run the world, or so they like to think, or we allow, or however we want to put it. But for us as South Asians, like when you talk about your son in that way and teaching him respect, understanding that, you also make mistakes, even though you're a mom and you have to apologize. Like these are all little ways to help break some of that toxic masculinity in these boys that grow up thinking, I'm a man. I don't have to say anything. I can do whatever.
Yeah.
Do you think about toxic masculinity sometimes, like coming from our culture and then raising an Indian boy out in the Western world? Like, do you think of, do you and your husband talk about that even? Because he's probably having to break barriers too, I would imagine.
I don't want to discount the fact that there are a lot of women who are experiencing toxic masculinity. I again have to acknowledge I've been lucky in that regards, that I have had a very gentle father, and my husband, he is my home. He is the opposite of toxic masculinity. So I think he cooks, he cleans, he never, he's very kind to me, he's supportive to my dreams. So I have to say, I have to a shout out to them. Thank you. Thank you to my dad, who is no longer here. But thank you for, and to my husband, Toxic masculinity definitely exists. And that goes way back to how, because men are taught to not cry. They are humans just like us, right? But if they have been taught to suppress their emotions, at some point they will burst, right?
Yeah.
So we have to stop that cycle. We have to raise awareness that men can be allowed to be vulnerable, right? If we do that, then that breaks the cycle. We have to try to talk about this, like how you're bringing this. I think, like, I feel I'm less aware about this topic, so I'm learning about this. Like when you had shared the questions with me, I looked it up, right? Like, and then I realized, oh man, even Raj had to fight with a bunch of goons before, Simran, he was allowed to have Simran, right? Like, even so it's in our movies, it's everywhere, right? It is obviously there are so many domestic abuse cases which still happen, which is like, so it's so sad.
And suicide rate. I mean, the rate between men and women with suicide is such a significant difference. Men is higher.
Yeah.
And that's not even all reported, because not many people, because of the stigma, want to share that their loved one died by suicide.
Yeah, now that I think of it, if in back home, I have two grown men, successful men who committed suicide.
Yeah.
So
if we work backwards from that suicide to what happened, what would you say would be the big contributing factors that would lead men to think that's the best decision for them?
I don't want to say too much about this because it is such a sensitive topic, right? But I think a lot goes back to communication.
Yeah.
If talking things out, are they allowed to talk it out? Like, what do you think, Kiran? Are men allowed to talk about their feelings?
That's a great question. I think individually, everyone might have a different answer, but when we look as a collective, big picture, I would say no. Men have to be strong. You have to tough it out. I even hear it at my son's baseball game. Just walk it off. right? Like I heard a dad saying that to his son. Does that dad love his son? I'm sure he's there. He's at his kid's game. His kid means so much. But sometimes we don't even realize the blind spots that we have. Right away we say, you fell down, just shake it off. And okay, sometimes, you have to teach kids to move quickly through pain. But a lot of times that shake it off mentality is there with all the men in terms of you can't cry, can't say sorry. You have to keep it in, that it just sounds so foreign when they let it out and talk about it. And we have to help them normalize that.
No, totally. Like, all these little sentences that, we say, like, you often hear other people tell men, that's so gay.
Yes.
Don't cry. Oh, are you good? I actually had somebody come over and they have 2 boys and, they gifted a Barbie doll to my daughter. And then their younger one wanted to just touch it and play with it. And they're like, do you like it? Kind of. And then we're like, oh, no, it's AO. And then he just went off, right? Like, because of that little tone when you're like, oh, that tone, like, oh, do you want to play with the doll?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a great example, because I think we miss things. Like, we think of big things like, oh, what is this word of toxic masculinity and men and all that? But you bring it down to something so simple that with the little babies in our house, we pick simple colors, pink and blue.
Yeah.
We think, boys have cars and girls have Barbies.
Yeah.
And then when, my sister and I were talking about this, we love getting our nails done, and we both have 2 boys each. And I would take my boys when they were little with me to go get their nails done, because I had a lot of friends that had girls and they used to go with their girls. And I'm like, man, I would love to go with my kid. Why can't I take my kid?
Totally.
And my boys loved getting their nails done. So they'd come and they'd paint. The ladies were so nice, they'd paint it. And then they would have some other kids that would say, why do you have your nails done? That's a girl's thing. And even my sister last weekend, where she lives, one of her son's friends kept making fun of him. Like, why do you keep painting your nails? That's for girls. And you think, like, we miss those things as parents. Like, those are good signs that we got to do a little bit more work, because we're being too rigid about nails and things like that. And even though we think, oh, what's the harm in telling your kid don't do your nails, or you can, it's how we view what men should be like.
Yeah.
And
exactly. You just see it as a voice, as a thing of expression.
Yeah.
If they're doing their nails, like, just maybe they're expressing themselves in that way.
And like my kids, 2-3 years later, they'll never go again now. Like, they're done. For them, it was a phase. And I was so glad I did that with them, because it didn't last that long. Now if I say, oh, you want to go with me? But they always want to look at my nails when they come home.
Oh, that's so cute.
What did you do, Mom? What did you do, Mom? And it's just, I think, when we want to fight the big fight, we have to start with some of these little things in our own home. Like, like you said, I looked it up. I think that's brilliant. And I love that you said, I'm learning about this. Because we sometimes think we can only talk about it if we know so much about it. And we don't know that much about it. And you talking to me about something that you're just learning is going to help me in a conversation. And maybe something I say might help you in a conversation.
100%.
And I think it's just being okay, like you said, to get vulnerable and say, is this an issue? And if it is, how can I help at least my son feel like he can?
Yeah, no, my son totally knows if he's gonna be a bad brother, his sister's gonna give it back to him. She's 2, so, and he's open to it.
Because a lot of times the younger sister in our culture, how many friends did we grow up, or how many times have we seen, if you're the younger sister of brothers, your life is a little more complicated than some of the other kids.
No, not in our household.
I love that. I think, as it should be, all the siblings should give each other a hard time, not just because you have an older brother, right? My sister always says it was worse for her because she had an older sister. So she's like, older sisters are way harder than older brothers.
I've heard that, but then I've had friends who have like 2 sisters, and they become like these best of friends after, and then they don't need anybody. They share clothes. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. They're funny story. We did share clothes, but then there's times, because I am the older sister, I think I have the power. I think I'm superior, as we were talking about earlier. And one time I don't know why I did this. We got in a fight and she wouldn't let me wear one of her shirts. And I'm like, how can you tell me? I'm your older sister. So I went in her room and I took all her clothes and I had deodorant and I put it all on her shirts, all on all her clothes. And I was like, if I can't wear it, then you can't wear it.
Oh my God.
But I mean, like 5 minutes later, my mom beat me up, right? So like taught me my lesson or whatever. But I know sometimes we laugh about it and my sister's like, oh, I better let you wear that or you're going to wreck my stuff. But
makes for a good story at least,
yeah,
right?
As we get older, right? But I mean, we are closer now for sure. I think it's a nice bond to have with your sister, even if you have a brother or whatnot. It's just nice. It's nice to have siblings. I think
totally.
You know?
I have an elder brother, and I've looked up to him like for such a long time.
Yeah,
you have to look for Ninja Nari too, right? You're all fellow South Asian women. We are going through life in a different way or whatsoever, right? So we have to look at each other as humans.
Yeah.
And if the whole world saw each other as just humans, like, wars wouldn't happen, racism wouldn't happen, stereotyping wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, it's just a simple thing, but which is so hard.
It is hard. I agree.
Yeah.
So with Ninja Nari and mental health, you talked about you're doing mocktails and mental health.
Mandalas and mocktails.
Oh, mandalas. Okay. So but just big part of mental health. It's part of mindfulness. So is that connected to Ninja Nari?
Yes, it is totally connected to Ninja Nari because a part of Ninja Nari is to also get out of not just be an Instagram page, right? We want to host events.
Yeah.
We want to have people, sometimes like when I started Ninja Nari, even though there are so many events happening in and around the city, but I didn't feel like that this is where I would want to go. So I want to have events where people feel that, okay, this can be a safe space. This is where I want to go. This is a simple event.
You're trying not to make a big deal out of it, but at the same time, you want to honor the importance of like socializing, networking, getting together, and healthy ways to get together. So that's why you're doing mocktails.
Yeah, that's why it's a simple. It's going to be in a good earth.
Yeah.
So it's not a serious venue.
It's awesome.
You come. You literally don't have to bring any supplies. You just have to come, bring yourself.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do, because that's also the hard piece.
Yes.
Of signing up for something like this and thinking that taking a break from your daily tasks, you do this for yourself. You come, all supplies are there. Palak, who's the artist, she is a ninja herself, ninja artist. So she will help you, guide you through the process. There's a free drink included. You just get anything off the menu on the house.
Nice.
And that's it.
That's awesome. When is that event happening?
It is on August 3rd, 4:30 to 6:30.
And, when we put the episode up, we'll also put the address and stuff. But if you can tell us here, which good earth is it at?
I will. It's in Cranston Avenue. So
perfect.
The registrations, I'll just open up the registrations real soon.
Okay.
And the seats are really limited, so sign up ASAP.
I love that. What do you envision for Ninja Nari in the future?
Like I mentioned earlier, Ninja Nari is still in its early stages, right? And I'm really grateful for all the support that I've received even now, right? Like in such an early stage of it. As we continue to grow, my vision for Ninja Nari is to become like this trusted resource, a central hub basically, where South Asian women, they can seek advice, find inspiration, build solidarity. My dream is to nurture a platform that celebrates and amplifies these so many beautiful stories and experiences of South Asian women, creating a supportive community that empowers us all.
I see it's like a knowledge house.
Yeah.
Like it's a resource place. There are some women that have come on here recently too that I'll after this connect you with, because you have a website coming and some of the services they offer. Like, for example, I had a Harjeet Kaur on who battled stage 4 rare cancer. And now she's a spokesperson for a lot of fundraisers, the stigma of cancer in our community. So she's doing a lot of work about that. And even things like going bald, and hair is so important to us in our community. And so she's doing this amazing job using her survival. And I could see her, she started Jai and Hope. An area for South Asians who are experiencing cancer. Maybe they have loved ones to come and get support. But I could see connection with you guys. People can come to your website and learn about that. People can go to her and learn that they have
Absolutely,
you. Like there's if we create these support networks for each other. I was laughing earlier. I'm like, man, I need more like Punjabi friends. And I'm like, is there a Tinder for this? But maybe you are the Tinder. Maybe you are that network where we go to and we think, okay, what are the events coming up? What are the things we can do together? You know, I would love to show up to Mandela's and Mocktails and meet other people and meet Balak as well. You know, that'd be so cool to do.
Yeah, see how you said, like, you know, Ninja Nari can be the Tinder for South Asian women. So I want these ideas because, like I said again, right, us Ninja Nari being in its initial stages, I want these little ideas to be thrown at us so that we can identify our direction, right? I mean, I want Ninja Nari to be a place where we can freely share our stories, share events, and people be like, hey, I want this and this. Like, okay, I know this is, I need to go to ninjanari.ca and they will have this information, right? And so Ninja Nari is, again, like I said, truly for you, by you, you know, so we can build this together.
Can't do this on your own.
I cannot do this on my own. And if this is going to become big, it is going to become big because of you all.
Yeah.
Because like be willing to share, be willing to, me coming here or me reaching out for stories is me getting out of my comfort zone. We all need to do that. We get so comfortable in our daily lives. We are all meant for more.
Yeah.
Like, we don't just have to be a brown girl in a white world. We all have so much to offer. And each of us, what I have, you might not have, Kiran. What you are doing, I cannot do. But we can learn from each other. We can grow. We can support. There's everything. There's so much for all of us.
I love that. And like, what would you say to those of us listening or maybe have played the role or experienced that competition within our own, you know, the women from our own community? So I'm sure you've been part of it. I've been on both sides. I've been the woman that is in the workplace when another brown girl comes and I say, these are my white people, you know, like there can only be one brown woman here. I'm special, which I'm dismantling all that. That's not the way to go. So there's this competition between each other. And then there's also just in general, when we look at each other, walk by each other, we can't smile. We just don't know how to be kind to each other. And that's not all of us, but it is a big part of how I grew up. And so I'm curious, like, what would you say to break that down? What can we be doing, those people listening? How can we help move from looking down on each other and more so of like you said, uplifting each other, smiling together?
Yeah, no, that's so funny. I don't know why we do that. When we cross each other, like, you know, there's a South Asian, you know, we cross each other. Why are we not smiling at each other? What's going on?
I know.
Like, it is so wrong, right? Yeah. Like, this doesn't really happen in other communities. Like, when my mom, she visits, she's categorically mentioned it a bunch of times that everybody over here, she sees smiling, like referring to white people. But for us, she sees, you know, we have these, in Hindi, she'll say, theoria chadi hui hai. You know, like, we have these forehead lines, like, we are serious. Like, why? Let's just hug it out, man. Like, you know,
right?
I mean, we were driving back to our home and I saw this, like, a house was on sale and it was sold. And I saw these Desi people move into it. And, you know, I literally just took off my shoes, put my slippers. And as I ran to them. I was like, hello, welcome to the community. You know, so this is, and, you know, we just got talking and a bit. And that's about it, right? I just went there, said hi, and came back. Like, we have to stop seeing each other as it has to be competition over collaboration. Because I said earlier, it is something for all of us. We all can coexist and grow.
I really, really like what you said. I have been thinking about this and you just gave me a call to action, a goal to do. I live in a very white community and I'm also noticing lately there's more South Asians. And I waved at one man the other day and I'm like, are you new here? And he's like, yeah, I just moved. I'm like, hi. But there is this one family that lives in a house here and this is an older community. And so there was a brand new house built and it stands out because it's big and it's brand new. And there happened to be South Asians that moved in. Every time I drive by, I think about them and I think I should go knock on their door and welcome them because I know what it felt like when I moved in the community.
Yeah.
I did have a few white people come say hi, but it helped because my kids were going to school.
Yeah.
They're older. And I wonder, I'm like, have they been invited? Do they have good neighbors? Do they feel lonely? And so I feel after hearing what you're saying too, I think that's a great idea. Like to go and when I see them outside, go knock on their door, say hi, welcome, because for some reason we don't realize how helpful that can be if someone did that for us.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. Once again, just going back, I think that's the beauty of this country.
Yeah.
That's what it has taught me, to be free, to not overthink it. We are taught to overthink so much, but this country has taught me to be yourself. If in your heart you feel this is right, you're not doing any harm to anybody, then just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what's the worst thing that will happen?
Yeah.
Will somebody say no? Will they say no, you're not welcome? That's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay. You
Yeah.
know, just go do what your heart feels like doing.
Yeah. I love that. I was going to ask you, just as we're about to wrap up here, we talked about a few things. We talked about Ninja Nari, and we talked about a little bit of mental health. We talked about toxic masculinity, mom life, a little bit of that. Before we start to wrap up, what is it that you hope people listening today will do with Ninja Nari or think of with Ninja Nari? What will help them remember Ninja Nari after today?
I hope that Ninja Nari feels like a platform where you can come share a laugh, where you can share your story without feeling that you'll be judged. That's it. It's a very simple, humble doing. If it grows bigger than it is supposed to be, thank you. But for now, I just want, if you're out there and you don't have a village like I didn't up until Ninja Nari started, I am inviting you, that just slide into my DMs, say hi, and you don't even need to come and share your story until you feel comfortable. We'll chat it out. We'll have a chai. If you want to meet in person, I will come meet you in person, or we'll just have a chai over the phone. No FaceTime, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever works for you. I'm here to hear, so.
As we start wrapping up, is there anything you wish that I had asked you today or that we did talk about that maybe we didn't cover?
Not really. I think we talked about everything.
Yeah? You feel good about that?
Yeah.
And I know this isn't the last time we're going to meet because one thing I want to ask you about, we talk a little bit about cultural gaps, Eastern, Western, we fall in these gaps. You are in the middle of writing a book.
Yes.
Can we talk about that?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. It's about Halloween and Diwali, and Halloween becomes such a big part of our life, especially I used to be excited about Halloween when I moved to Canada. I didn't have kids, but it became a bigger part of our life after having kids, right?
Yeah.
My son is so excited about Halloween, sometimes more than Diwali, which I do not appreciate.
Yeah.
So, and this year, Halloween is on October 31st as usual, and Diwali is on November 1st, right? So just imagine the plight of these women who will have to find that balance where you're also going trick-or-treating, but next day you have your house lit up and decorated for Diwali also, so that got me thinking, I'm writing this book called Spooks and Sparklers. I'm kind of navigating between two names. So Spooks and Sparklers or Diwali-o-een, something like that.
Yeah.
So,
So, combine the name. Yeah.
So it's such a combining
Hallowali.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I
As
like
you're
that.
talking, that's all I'm like, I'm gonna think of a name. Sorry. But yeah, keep going. You got me excited.
I love that. Thank you. So yeah, I basically I want to find ways to blend these two cultural celebrations, right? I want to these are two huge rich cultural festivals, and so I just want to make sure that we are appreciating and understanding both the cultures. Like as much as we are trick or treating, we are also celebrating Diwali. One way I do this is not just by writing this book, but we also make sure that I work with my child's teachers, and we talk about Diwali, and we go visit their school with some activities, with some gulab jamun, like my coworkers like to call gulab jamun sugar bombs, so
no, they're called gulab jamun. They're my favorite.
Yeah.
They're not sugar bombs, gulab jamun.
Basically I by this book, I want to create a unique and inclusive environment where my kids can enjoy best of both the worlds.
Yeah.
And I want to give it out to the rest of the world, so you all can, don't have to, just enjoy the richness of these festivities.
I just really love hearing this, and it's so good for little kitten, young kitten, that growing up in the white girl complex, just so many of these traditions that I value now, but I just didn't care for because I was that kid that would rather have the Halloween, or are we going to put a Christmas tree up, because we wanted to blend in. And honestly, you're going to talk about Halloween at school here in Canada the next day. You're not going to talk about Diwali. So it makes it easier to go for the Western culture.
Yeah.
And what I really like that you're doing is saying, but why can't we have both?
Exactly. Yeah.
And part of the village is educating those that want around. If your kid's school is open to this, that's amazing. That they would be inviting and wanting to learn about other customs and cultures. And also, I think it's empowering for so many of the South Asian moms out there that had to figure out how to deal with, how do I get my kid to want to be part of Diwali after the big production of Halloween, right? Like that, I until you had told me about this book, I honestly didn't even think about it. And I sat down and I thought, oh my God, like, yeah, how many of my moms and mussies and, puas, all of my aunts and all of them growing up, they had so many of us kids. And how many times in their head did they think, oh, stupid Halloween, right? By Diwali, right? Because we didn't care. Diwali is what the Western culture practices so much of.
Yeah, and I just want to say one little thing is that, this year, as the festivals are both the festivals are so close to each other, like, don't restrain your kids that no, we're not going to go trick-or-treating this year because it's Diwali the next day, right? Like, let's have the best of both the worlds. Let them like time it out, or it's the onus is on us adults, right? We have to, you have to start the conversations and that's where the book will come handy, right? Because there's a whole story about how a 5-year-old is, Mom, I want to celebrate Halloween. Why do we have to do Diwali? So you get those conversations going. Not just this, there is Binni's Diwali, there's other books. Maybe even start getting in touch with your child's teacher in advance. That helps, right? So you just have to start having those tiny little conversations with your little ones kind of way in advance, so it doesn't throw them off also, because it's difficult for them also to understand.
100%, right? And then we get mad, but they only know what they know. But I think, like, I just want to make a big deal out of this, and I just want you to know what you're doing is so big, because again, I know you're saying, why can't we have both? But I just think for so long that's never been an option. For many of us growing up, especially those of us that were born here, like, it was one or the other. And so you saw some homes where it was only speak Punjabi, wear your hair in a gut, and when you come home, put your suit on, go to Punjabi school and learn our culture. And then some homes, it was more Western. And it was very rare did we see both. Not everybody knew how to manage both. And even as humans, we're like that. We do one thing or the other. Is it Coke? Is it Pepsi? iPhone? Android? We don't have...
I draw the line there. I'm an iPhone person. I will draw the line there.
You're like, you know what? You were talking good until now. I know, right? So that's always the fight, right? Which one is it? But I love what you're challenging, and I don't think everyone's gonna jump to it right away, because it can feel like a different concept. And I think that you putting a book out there, you talking like that is going to open the doors for so many more people to come along and say, oh yeah, why can't we do both?
Yeah,
We
I
live
really
here.
hope so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if that could help, like, even one family, one set of, like, little kids be like, I can do both. Yay. And then they grow up to do that with their kids.
Exactly. It's not one or the other, but it's healing for a lot of us adults now. Talking to you, you are bringing a lot of healing for the little girl in me.
Thank you.
Just so that's why I was like, this is a big deal, because this book.
I just had goosebumps.
Well, I'm glad. It's a little cold in here, but our younger selves get to like exhale and breathe when people like you discover a way to help us look at those gaps. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, my pleasure. I mean, and just one more way of what we can do is, there are these little diyas which come, right? We embrace Halloween and we embrace Christmas, but why don't just, if you have white friends out there, take a diya, give it to them as a Diwali gift. Let them also, let's give them a chance to embrace our festivals. If we don't do that, then it's not going to happen. It's not self-taught.
Yeah. It's like what you said. We have to be there and guide our children. They can't some of the white community also isn't just going to be curious. And again, that's not a bad or good thing. It's just we can open the door and 100%. Invite them as well. There's one way of doing that. And I think that's a great way to invite curiosity as well. So that's well said. I'm going to get you to still do one call to action. I always ask my guests. I know you just offered one thing, but if there's only one thing everyone listening today could take from your episode, what would that one thing you want them to leave here with be?
Say no to self-doubt. I mean, leaving apart anything, Ninja Nari or anything else, self-doubt kills us. There is more to life. Like, we say India is our Janam Bhumi. Canada is a Karam Bhumi. It doesn't just have to be a Karam Bhumi. We can enjoy it. Let's be, don't be afraid to take those chances. I know we all have our dreams. Don't suppress them. Find a friend, say it out loud, like I found a friend in Kiran. So, and voice it, whatever you have, right? And just go for it.
Well said. I think that's the best place to leave it. Thank you, Neha, for coming on today, introducing us to Ninja Nari. Thank you for coming on and being so open to talking about the things that, maybe were nerve-wracking, maybe weren't something that you were planning on doing, but you showed up and you did a really good job showing up. So
thank you, Kiran. Thank you for this opportunity. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. For everyone else listening, these conversations we always say are door openers. So if there's something that we talked about today that caught your curiosity, maybe made you defensive, maybe made you think about something, reach out, share that with us. Let's talk it out. If you want to be part of more conversations like this, fusing the Western and Eastern gaps, you know where to find us. Reach out. Thank you so much.